Some of the biggest regrets in a man's life don't come from missed opportunities. They come from the good woman he pushed away, ignored, or hurt because he thought she'd always stay. And here's the thing about karma. It doesn't show up the moment you mess up. It shows up when the silence sets in, when the texts stop, when you realize no one else matches her depth, her kindness, her loyalty. Today I want to talk about why karma doesn't miss when you hurt a good woman, and why you don't realize what you had until you see her loving someone who treats her right. When a man has a good woman, truly good, he often doesn't realize what he's holding. She's not loud about her loyalty. She doesn't announce her sacrifices. She doesn't keep score when she puts in emotional effort, makes space for his dreams, or softens herself just to meet him halfway. She simply loves, and she does it in a way that's consistent, quiet, and unwavering. And that's exactly why so many people take her for granted. Because she makes it look easy, she makes patience look ordinary, she makes emotional labor invisible. Until she's gone. A good woman is not just defined by how she treats you when things are going well, but how she sticks around when things aren't. She's the one who listens when you don't have the words, who forgives when you don't deserve it, who still chooses you even when you give her every reason to walk away. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's someone who knows how to love. That's someone who values connection, who sees potential, who believes in the good in people, even when it's buried under ego or fear. But the world has conditioned many men to think there's always another chance, that no matter how they behave, that woman will always be there, that love like hers is replaceable. But it's not. You don't just find a good woman. She's not a product on a shelf waiting for you to wake up and choose better. She is shaped by her life experiences, her self-respect, her ability to love even when she's been hurt before. And when she offers that kind of presence to someone, it's a gift. One that too many realize they've mishandled only after it's gone. That's where karma begins to show up, not as revenge, but as clarity, as the slow, painful realization that no one else makes you feel the way she did, that the women you chase after now might be fun, exciting, even beautiful, but they don't have her. They don't challenge you the way she did. They don't calm you. They don't call you out and still stand beside you in your mess. They don't feel like home. And what makes this hurt even more is that the good woman you pushed away, she doesn't wait around for karma to do the work. She evolves. She builds herself back up. She takes that same love, strength, and devotion you didn't appreciate, and she redirects it to herself first, and then to someone who will value it, and you get to watch. That's karma. Not some dramatic punishment, but the quiet consequence of your own actions. Watching her bloom in a life you no longer have access to. And here's the bitter truth. Most men who lose a good woman didn't mean to hurt her. They didn't wake up and decide to be careless. But that's the problem. They didn't wake up at all. They coasted. They got comfortable. They assumed she'd always understand, always forgive, always be there, until she wasn't. And by the time they realized what they had, she had already given herself permission to walk away without anger, without bitterness, just certainty. That's the moment it hits, that she wasn't just nice or supportive or loyal. She was rare, and she was yours, and now she's not. And no matter how much you try to recreate the feeling, the moments, or the bond, you can't, because good women don't come in multiples. They're a singular experience in your life. You either grow with her when she's present, or you grow from losing her. Either way, karma makes sure you grow. Karma isn't loud. It doesn't storm in with flashing lights and dramatic scenes. It moves quietly but deliberately. And when you've hurt a good woman, someone who showed up for you with love, loyalty, and patience, karma doesn't need to make a big scene to do its job. It works in the quiet moments, in the spaces you never thought would hurt. It doesn't always show up with consequences you can see immediately. Sometimes it waits. It lets you think you got away with it. It lets you distract yourself with new people, new thrills, new conversations that mimic connection but lack real depth. It lets you convince yourself you're doing just fine without her, until the stillness hits. That's when karma starts speaking, in the silence. When the noise fades and the temporary distractions stop working. When the chase starts to feel empty and your phone is filled with contacts but no one you can really talk to. When you realize that even in a crowded room you feel alone because the one person who made you feel understood, held, and seen is gone. That's not just loneliness, that's karma pulling the curtain back. You see, hurting a good woman doesn't always mean betrayal or harsh words. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of respect. The way you dismissed her feelings, the way you stopped showing appreciation, the way you expected her to keep giving while you gave less and less in return. And maybe she stayed longer than she should have. Maybe she gave you more chances than most would. But once she left, she took something with her you didn't even know you needed. That's where karma does its real work, not by punishing you, but by letting you see yourself without her reflection, softening your edges. Karma doesn't have to show up through revenge or dramatic life crashes. No, it shows up when you scroll through your memories and realize you don't smile the same anymore. It shows up when you meet someone new and feel nothing but comparison. You notice the small things, how they don't laugh like she did, how they don't support you in the same way, how they don't challenge you to be better without making you feel smaller. Suddenly you're not just missing her presence, you're mourning the version of yourself that only existed because she was there to bring it out. And maybe at first you tell yourself it's just nostalgia. You convince yourself you've moved on, but deep down you know something shifted. You didn't just lose a woman, you lost access to a peace, a trust, a kind of love that doesn't knock twice. Karma doesn't throw it in your face, it lets you figure it out slowly. Through every relationship that feels a little more surface level, through every moment you want to share something real but have no one who truly listens, through every reflection of what you had and how you let it slip through your fingers. Eventually you realize it wasn't just that she loved you, it was how she loved you, how she held space for your flaws, how she believed in you even when you doubted yourself. And when that kind of love is gone, it's not easy to forget. That's the price. That's the weight karma leaves behind. Not as punishment, but as a mirror. Not to make you suffer, but to make you understand. To bring awareness you didn't have when it mattered most. And by the time you do understand, it's not about getting her back. It's about living with the version of you that let her go. There's something almost tragically predictable about how people treat those who love them the most. When someone is consistently kind, supportive, and forgiving, it becomes easy to believe they'll never leave. You start to believe their loyalty is permanent, that their patience is endless. A good woman, one who loves deeply, gives selflessly, and stays even when things get hard, is often mistaken for someone who will never walk away. That illusion is comforting in the short term, but dangerous in the long run, because taking her for granted doesn't happen in one big moment, it happens in the small ones. The ignored messages, the broken promises, the repeated mistakes, she quietly forgives. She notices more than she says. She feels more than she shows. And every time she chooses to stay after being let down, a piece of her detaches, just slightly. It's not that she's keeping score or secretly building a case against you. It's that her soul, slowly and silently, is losing the safety it once felt with you. And the more you assume she'll always be there, the more she begins to plan a life where she no longer has to be. That shift is almost invisible at first. You won't see her packing bags or threatening ultimatums. She's not the type to scream or slam doors. But she is learning, observing, reassessing what she thought she could count on. And then, one day, she doesn't stay. Not because she's angry, not because she wants revenge, but because she finally realized her own worth and recognized that your love didn't match it. That's the part that stings the most. The exit isn't loud. It's calm, it's clear, and it's final. You thought she'd always be there, but the truth is, she was only ever there because she chose to be. Once her heart stops choosing you, there's no convincing her to return. That's when regret begins to settle in. It's easy to think love is infinite when you've always had it, but the moment it's gone, you realize just how much it actually held you together. You start to remember all the things you stopped noticing. Her thoughtfulness, the way she made your life easier, the way her presence made your space feel like home. Suddenly you're aware of all the moments you treated like they didn't matter. The times you were too busy, too distracted, too selfish. You see it all in hindsight, every missed opportunity to appreciate her, to reassure her, to simply say thank you. And now you're left in the quiet, the kind of quiet that only follows something real. You can't fill it with noise. You can't replace her energy. Other people may come along, but they won't feel like her. Because a good woman doesn't just offer affection, she brings a sense of peace, of trust, of emotional safety. You didn't just lose a partner, you lost your anchor. And once that realization hits, it doesn't go away. The hardest part isn't losing her, it's living with the knowledge that she gave you chance after chance, and you kept believing there would always be another one. You gambled with something priceless, thinking you were playing a game you couldn't lose. But you did. And the cost isn't just her absence, it's the awareness of how preventable it all was. You'll think about the little things, the everyday moments you brushed off. You'll remember her patience, her care, the way she tried to make things work long after you stopped trying. And all of it will point to one truth. What you took for granted was the very thing you should have protected the most. One of the most common things people say after losing a good woman is, "She changed." It becomes a comfortable excuse, something that takes the pressure off having to look in the mirror and ask the harder question. Did she really change? Or did she just stop tolerating what never changed in you? The truth is, a good woman doesn't just wake up one day and become distant or cold. She becomes that way gradually, often after months or even years of trying to communicate her needs, her hurt, her disappointments, only to feel unheard, unseen, or dismissed. And at some point, what looks like her changing is actually her getting honest. With herself first, then with you. A good woman doesn't leave the relationship overnight. She leaves piece by piece. Her laughter becomes quieter, her texts become shorter, her patience wears thinner. But even then, she's still hoping you'll notice. She's still wishing you'll wake up and see what you're losing before it's too late. She's not trying to walk away. She's trying to be heard. But when you meet her with defensiveness instead of reflection, silence instead of conversation, ego instead of effort, you're unknowingly speeding up a process that could have been reversed. And when she finally does reach her limit, she doesn't come to you with rage or resentment, she comes with detachment. That's when it hits. That's when you realize the woman you thought would always wait, always forgive, always come back, won't. Because she didn't change out of nowhere, she evolved out of necessity. She had to learn how to protect her peace when you couldn't protect her heart. She had to rebuild the parts of herself that kept getting chipped away in a relationship where she gave more than she got. So when she stopped begging, stopped trying, stopped hoping, that wasn't her giving up, that was her growing up. And here's the painful irony. Most people don't realize how much they've hurt someone until that person no longer reacts. Silence becomes the loudest scream. Indifference replaces passion. And it's easy to label her as cold or distant. But the truth is, you taught her to stop expecting better from you. You trained her to lower the bar. And when she finally chose to walk away, she wasn't being heartless. She was being honest. With her needs, with her worth, with what she deserved all along but kept compromising for your potential. What's hard to accept is that she didn't stop loving you when she left. She stopped loving the version of herself that had to keep shrinking just to keep you close. She stopped wanting the relationship that required her to settle for less. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Not that she walked away, but that she did it calmly, clearly, without needing you to understand, because she finally understood herself. You don't lose a good woman because she suddenly became someone else. You lose her because she finally returned to the person she was before she kept making excuses for you. And the saddest part, that version of her, the one who waited, who forgave, who tried, was the one you got to see. The next man won't meet her that way. He'll meet the stronger, wiser, more self-assured version of her. The one who learned the hard way not to overextend herself for someone who only offered love in theory, not in action. So when you sit there wondering what happened, don't ask why she changed. Ask why it took her so long. Ask why you didn't. Because in the end, she didn't leave because she became someone different. She left because you didn't. In the moment, it's easy to believe that someone will always be there, especially when they've shown you time and time again that they care, that they forgive, that they're willing to ride out the rough seasons with you. A good woman doesn't just walk away at the first sign of trouble. She leans in, she invests, she hopes. And that kind of consistency can start to feel permanent. It gives the illusion that no matter what you do or fail to do, she'll stay. That illusion is dangerous because it numbs you to the weight of your actions. It makes you careless with something irreplaceable. But time doesn't lie. Time reveals everything. And what it reveals, most painfully, is how temporary things can become when you've taken them for granted. A woman who once sent long, thoughtful messages now leaves you on read. A woman who used to make excuses for your bad days now makes boundaries. She's no longer checking up on you. She's no longer chasing clarity. Time has turned her silence into closure, and that's the part you never saw coming. In the moment your ego might have whispered, "She won't leave." That voice told you she'd understand, that she'd always come back, that her love would outlast your mistakes. But ego speaks only to your comfort. It doesn't speak to the reality that love has limits, even when it's real, especially when it's real, because love without respect becomes survival. Love without effort becomes exhaustion. And no one, not even the most devoted woman, can survive that forever. So time goes on. At first, you don't feel the shift. You fill your days with distractions. You move through your routine. Maybe you even convince yourself you're better off. But time keeps working. Not to punish you, but to bring the truth closer and closer to the surface. One day, you'll pick up your phone to share something, maybe good news, maybe something random, and realize she's no longer the person you'd call. Not because she changed her number, not because she blocked you, but because she's no longer emotionally available to you. Her space is now sacred, reserved, protected. And that's when time hits hardest. Not when she leaves, but when you finally realize she meant more than you ever gave her credit for. That her love wasn't just convenient, it was foundational. She kept you grounded. She made you feel safe. And you didn't just lose her, you lost the part of yourself that only existed when you were loved by her. That feeling doesn't come back easily. You can't recreate it just by finding someone new. You can't swipe your way back into that depth. Because that kind of connection wasn't just about her. It was about who you were when you were with her. And by the time you fully understand that, you also understand that it's too late. Not because she hates you, not because she wants revenge, but because she found peace in your absence. She found out that she doesn't have to beg to be seen, that love doesn't have to hurt to be real, that she can be soft and strong at the same time, and that someone else will see both and never ask her to choose. Time, more than anything, is the great revealer. It unmasks the truth you were too proud or too distracted to face. It doesn't yell, it doesn't rush, it just keeps moving, until one day you find yourself looking back, wishing you could rewind, knowing full well you wouldn't lose her if you'd simply valued her when you had the chance. Losing a good woman isn't just about her absence, it's about who you become without her presence in your life. A lot of people think the real punishment is the breakup itself, that it's about watching her move on, or waking up one day to see her smiling next to someone new. But that's not it. The true weight of karma comes later, and it hits much deeper. It shows up in the mirror, when you're forced to face the version of yourself that only existed because she loved you the way. When a good woman is in your life, she brings more than affection. She brings belief. She sees the parts of you that are unpolished, uncertain, maybe even a bit broken, and still offers patience, encouragement, and understanding. She makes you feel like more than what the world sees. And whether you admitted it or not, that became your safe place. She gave you a kind of emotional shelter that made you feel like you were enough, even on the days you didn't believe it yourself. You may not have always shown it, but you leaned on that. And when she's gone, that's what disappears too. What you're left with isn't just an empty bed or a silent phone. You're left with the weight of knowing she brought out a side of you no one else has. Maybe it was your softest side. Maybe it was your most driven, most inspired self. Maybe she reminded you of your own goodness just by how deeply she believed in it. And when she's no longer there to reflect that back to you, You're forced to see what remains. The truth is, for a while, you may not like that version of yourself, because without her encouragement, without her emotional investment, without her calming presence, you feel smaller, less certain, less seen. People don't always realize how much of their identity is built around being loved by someone who sees their potential. When that love is gone, so is that version of you. That's not something you can replace with casual company or short-lived attention. You might try, you might tell yourself you've moved on, but deep down you know something's missing. Not just her, but the way you felt about yourself when she was around. That's where karma lives. Not in revenge, but in reflection, in recognizing what you lost and why. And maybe, at some point, you start to grow. But the growth feels bittersweet, because it's rooted in a realization that it took losing someone extraordinary to finally understand how you failed to show up for her. That you're becoming a better man, but too late for the one who inspired that growth in the first place. You're no longer who you were, but she's no longer yours either. And the hardest part is knowing she gave you every chance. She didn't walk away after one mistake. She stayed, hoping you'd meet her in the middle, that you'd recognize her worth before she had to protect it from you. Now she's not your comfort anymore. She's not your sounding board. She's not your sanctuary. She's just a memory, a vivid one, but a memory all the same. And you have to sit with that. That's the real price. It's not just losing her love. It's learning to live without the version of yourself that her love allowed to exist. You weren't just better with her. You were better because of her. And now you have to figure out how to become that man on your own. That's karma. It doesn't destroy you. It forces you to rebuild with a full understanding of what you once had and didn't value when it mattered most. So if you've ever had the love of a good woman and let it slip through your hands, understand this. Karma didn't come for you to punish, it came to teach. It showed up not with fire and fury, but in the quiet moments where her absence says more than any words ever could. You don't just lose a good woman, you lose the version of yourself she believed in. You lose the late-night talks that made the world feel safe. You lose the loyalty, the softness, the fierce kind of love that doesn't ask for attention, it just gives. And when she's gone, what you're left with isn't just regret, it's the realization that she wasn't the one who changed. You did. But maybe that's the purpose of all of this. Maybe karma isn't cruel. Maybe it's compassionate enough to break you open so you can finally become the man you were supposed to be all along. The one who doesn't need to lose something precious to recognize its value. Because the truth is, when you hurt a good woman, karma doesn't miss. It just waits for you to feel what she felt, for you to see what you couldn't, and for you to finally understand what it really costs to lose a heart that only ever wanted to love you right.